Hi, my name is Leanna, and this is my informational speech on sharks. In the words of Elizabeth Griffin at Marine Wildlife and Oceana in 2009, humans are pushing shark species to extinction with devastating impacts on ocean ecosystems. There are two different types of sharks, daylight and twilight shark species, and each ones have evolved differently to survive their respective ecosystems. And there's a few major differences between each species, and both equally suffer from pollution and temperatures. The relevance for this is that the new patterns of sharks are forced to adapt because of human pollution, and it can better to help us understand what's really happening in the oceans and prevent it from injuring even further animals than just sharks. I'm credible for this speech because I've loved sharks for quite some time. It's been my favorite animal to learn about, and I just find anything related to them very interesting. In this speech, I will be informing you about the difference between daylight and twilight sharks and how they have adapted to survive their environments. So first, I would like to discuss the types of sharks we see, daylight sharks. Then I will share what I know about twilight sharks, and then compare their developments and habits to the current destruction of said environment and pollution. Okay, so the first shark I want to talk about are daylight zone sharks, which are the most common sharks we know about because they live in shallow waters and they live closer to the surface, so we're a lot more familiar with those. And
we were with Brandon, right?
Yeah, we're right.
And how they are very much affected by the pollution. And in an article written by American, explains that these animals live in shallow open waters and they use long tails to catch and stun their prey. This animal is the thresher shark. And they do like some amount of deep sea, but they're majority of the time they're closer to the surface. And they are solitary and non-migrant animals, which means that the amount of area in which they're polluted and they live in would be greater affected towards them since they don't move anywhere else. Another example of daylight sharks would be the hammerhead shark. These sharks are actually very aggressive, and we know them for being the staple of help. We're getting eaten by sharks. They're prone to attacking unprovoked and cannibalizing their species. They are highly migratory, which makes them more likely to be affected by global warming and pollution. In addition to compared to deep water sharks, they have incredible eyesight and depth perception. They can see their prey from quite a few miles away. I believe it's 9 to 10 miles away. But now that you've heard all about daylight sharks, I want to talk about twilight sharks. Hidden in the depths of the seas, they have adapted to survive away from humans and any interaction, so they're less affected by the events closer to the surface, like pollution. According to the frilled shark article published by Marine Bio, they are eel-like sharks that swim at terrifying depths. However, they occasionally do come closer to the surface. They are different than daylight zone sharks, and since they're weak swimmers, they require on inhaling their food rather than swimming and powering through it to eat, which makes them an inferior species to daylight sharks in some ways because they don't really require their fins or anything else around them to survive, just pitch black. And the second species of twilight sharks are goblin sharks. And according to COMMC's article on goblin sharks, they only live in the deep, around 800 to 3,000 feet. And they're really sluggish animals, and that's because they don't get much energy from the surrounding prey that they have. They don't have great eyesight, but it is recorded that they do have eyesight. And their sluggishness can also be compared to daylight sharks because in the dark you don't need energy to really swim around since you're only really staying in your located area. But now that I've talked about both types of sharks, I want to tell you about the effects of pollutants towards them. The first major concern is global warming, because the more the oceans heat up is the more that sharks' migratory patterns do change. And according to researchers at the NOAA in a 2021 article, fisheries.gov states that global warming has heated the waters, causing the sharks to migrate to areas that were not previously in their mating/hunting areas. This allows different types of sharks that were not previously in contact to become in contact with each other, and thus mixing the sharks previously creating new species or disrupting them from their already instinctual habitats from what they're used to. And aside from sun pollution, water pollution is also another form of endangerment that sharks are being exposed to. Water pollution actually has toxins that harm the reproductive system and the immunity system of sharks. And it also harms the sensors it uses to hunt and migrate. In an article by Abdullah in a 2024 article by SaveOurSeas.com, microplastics and pollution damages the internal organs affecting the immune system, reproductive organ, and sensors it uses to hunt and migrate. Because all sharks have sensors, hair on their noses that allow them to hunt and sense prey from a whales away, whereas daylight sharks, they don't really rely on this as much because they have great eyesight and they have great depth perception where they can tell exactly where their prey is, whereas twilight sharks need it since they can't exactly see in the dark. To recap, I discussed 2 species of daylight sharks and how they survived. Then I mentioned 2 other species of twilight sharks. And then I talked about the effects of pollutant on sharks themselves and endangering their fragile ecosystems. Personally, to me, I see that changing the evolutionary changes of each species have undergone is to survive their respective ecosystems, and it's getting more difficult as pollution increases faster and faster. We're not giving sharks a chance to be able to adapt to their new areas.